We left the old country and crossed an ocean to start a new life in San Francisco. Then the world shook.
It's 1941. 世界は変わってきてるわよ。
And nothing was the same.
I have terrible news.
Everything gonna be okay. They're just scared.
That's what worries me. Scared people do stupid things.
You answered no to a couple of the loyalty questions. That's a problem.
I'll go shoot the Nazis. I'll shoot the Japanese. All you have to do is let us out of this stinking camp.
What's your name again? Jerry. Gary. Did the colonel call us Americans? Yeah, he did. Why?
When the colonel calls us Americans, it means we're in for a rough time.
It's gonna be okay.
Stop saying that. It's not gonna be okay. Nothing's gonna be okay.
Took our money. Oh, but honey, ain't we got fun?
Over the course of World War II, the U.S. government forcibly removed more than 120,000 Japanese Americans from their homes, confining them in a series of camps. The memories of confinement survive today in photos, objects, and spaces, and are stewarded by those who must grapple with the complexity of curating records of the past for future generations.
You're asking me what a Japanese Canadian means to me? I was born in Vancouver of Japanese parents. The BC government said everybody of Japanese ancestry has to leave our home and our schools because we were dangerous to the welfare of Canada.
I was 2 years old when Pearl Harbor happened.
When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, our west coast became a potential combat zone. Living in that zone were more than 100,000 persons of Japanese ancestry, 2/3 of them American citizens.
I don't really remember the chaos, but there were curfews first, and the signs went up. It was a few months later that we were moved to Santa Anita Racetrack. I remember the dirtiness and the dustiness and the smell. It was windy and we had to sleep in a horse stall. Here we were in a place, just thousands of people in this racetrack with barracks. And we were there for several months. My father was trying to figure out, what are we going to do now? We can't be stuck here forever. About 300 men, besides my father, volunteered to go to Montana. So me and my mother were on this train to Montana to harvest sugar beets. Being uprooted like this was a defining thing for a child. Just feeling rootless, homeless in a way, not having friends that you have grown up with. or family that you see all the time. Even though I had no words for it at the time, a child could feel it.
For episode 2 of season 4, we will be featuring the makers and creators of films that will be shown at Nichi Bei Foundation's 14th annual Films of Remembrance event. Films of Remembrance is a day-long showcase of films commemorating the forced incarceration of Japanese Americans in American concentration camps. This event seeks to honor the stories from the era of JA incarceration during World War II. This year, we are happy to announce that we are taking the Films of Remembrance on the road to Southern California, thanks to very generous funding from the California State Library's California Civil Liberties Public Education Program and the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation. Stay tuned for more on that later. For our pastry selection, we have a segment featuring creators of a short film on a Japanese Canadian who recalls his life in Vancouver, captivity in the Lemon Creek internment camp, and bomb-ravaged Hiroshima. For our salad selection, we travel down to Los Angeles to chat with Nobuko Miyamoto, following her life as a visionary musician, dancer, and activist. For our chef special, we sit with the director and lead actor and actress of the feature-length film Kintsukuroi, which portrays the life of two different families connected by the result of Executive Order 9066. For dessert, we speak with the creators of a short documentary that shows how Japanese American families found ways to document their lives behind barbed wire, despite bans on cameras. And as a special snack, our Southern California correspondent visits Little Tokyo to report on an event that will bring back the spirit of baseball, with the rebuilding of a baseball diamond at the Manzanar National Historic Site. And of course, stick around to be treated to some news bites of happenings in our Japanese and Japanese American community. Finally, we end the program tonight with tips of events that are coming up in the next month and beyond. So without further delay, let's start the cafe. Hey everyone, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 2 of the Nichi Bei Café. We want to thank all of you for tuning in and supporting us on this journey of documenting Japanese and Japanese American lifestyle. So let's get to it. Starting off with our pastry selection tonight, we speak with a Nikkei Canadian story filmmaker, Alice Shin, and producer Eiko Kawabe-Brown. Together, they discuss their film A Nikkei Canadian Story, about Henry Ryusuke Shibata, a Japanese Canadian who recalls his life in Vancouver, captivity in Lemon Creek, and bomb-ravaged Hiroshima throughout their film. Please enjoy.
Hi, my name is Eiko Kawabe-Brown. I'm a filmmaker based in Toronto, Canada, and we are actually working on a film project, Landscapes of Home, and then also a Nikkei Canadian story.
I was born and raised in South Korea, but I studied film in Japan and immigrants in Canada. So I was working in Japan, Korea, and Canada as a film director and producer and editor.
Unlike Alice, I have no filmmaking background, but back in 2017, I sat next to Alice in one of the film festival, And we started talking about the project that Alice was working on.
My recent focusing for making film is exploring immigrant experiences. So I made my Canadian first film, and that title is Haru's New Year. This film, it was the very first film I made with Eiko.
And then from that on, I just learned every part of filmmaking from Alice.
And then after that, we explored Chinese immigrant story titled Signal Fire. We explored the Japanese Canadian descendant artist, and that title was History in Paper. And expanding on this theme, our current documentary titled Landscapes of Home as a feature version, and its cut down version title is A Nikkei Canadian Story.
The first, we started with Robinson family. I was a friend of a Robinson family member. We had a conversation about her family and her family history. They were actually missionary based in Japan at the turn of century. The war happened, World War II. They had to all leave Japan to move back to Canada. The steward, Cooper Robinson, was a doctor stationed in New Denver, Japanese Canadian internment camp. And he had experience being among the Japanese Canadians. This was actually after the war.
Once we found Robinson family, I was fascinated to talk about Japanese Canadian internment camps because I feel like it is a really important story. But then I feel there is a weakness to talk about this history by Dr. Stuart Cooper Robinson. Informed, like, is there anybody knows Dr. Stuart Cooper Robinson who worked as a doctor at the New Denver internment camps? Because I was approaching to the Japanese Canadian Facebook group, and one gentleman, Henry Shibata, fascinated to reply my answer very clearly with a vivid memory. And then she told me at that time he was like 90 years old, but then he explained so much things with his vivid memory. So I was just falling in love with him. And then I really interested in his story. And then now he talked to me like after he finishes his internment camps, he went to Hiroshima. So I feel like, what, is there another challenge for his life? So I really wanted to meet him. And after I met him, I found one more pillar to talk about Japanese Canadian internment camps. That's how we found Dr. Henry Ryusuke Shibata.
Canadian internment camp, the experience is very similar to American incarceration experience. There were 120,000 in the United States of America in 1941, Japanese American population. We had about 23,000 Japanese Canadians lived mostly in British Columbia. But of course, at the Pearl Harbor attack, and the United States and Japan were in the war. Canada was not directly involved, but they had a threat of these West Coast being heavily a defense zone. The government used the term relocate Japanese Canadian people into interior of British Columbia, mostly in 10 camps in Rocky Mountains. In the United States, I believe there are also 10 main camps in a desert area. At the end of the war, Japanese Canadians actually were not allowed to return to the West Coast until 1945. And there were 4,000 people actually left Canada, and others actually scattered all over Canada. So they did not form ethnic towns like they did in the pre-war, but they had more inter-ethnicity and intercultural marriage than Japanese Americans, interestingly.
So our first premiere screening was held in Toronto Japanese Film Festival at the Japanese Canadian Cultural Center in Toronto. It was some huge audience. It was about 200 people. They gave me different questions, such as why, as a third-party person, because I'm not Japanese descendant or Japanese immigrant, I'm Korean, but why did you make this film? And what was the theme you wanted to talk about? So I answered that as an immigrant, and I think this is a universal story. Whenever I stayed in Japan or Canada, I always feel I was the person who stands out in the marginal line. And sometimes it's lonely, but also sometimes you can observe many things. You cannot be observing if you are in a center. So before finding Henry, we met various interviewees. Our concern was that we are not Japanese descendant, but then probably because of that, some potential interviewee told me like, I never talked this to my grandchild, but I can tell you because you are Korean, you are the different person. So they really shared their interesting story or their deep story with me. So I really do appreciate it with that.
I would say, we are portraying Dr. Henry Shibata himself in this film, but there are many others. Their stories, each one of them different, each one of them are very important. And I'm sure others too, we would like to be the filmmakers who can actually help to keep their stories alive in the generations to come. Because I think with the current environment we live in and society, their experience is not something happened in the history. We need to know and we need to acknowledge and pass on to the future, for sure. So I hope we will be a small help to do that.
Thanks to Alice and Eiko, as well as our interviewer Rob Busher for their time on this segment. If you are curious about this film, please visit our website at 2025 or 2025.filmsofremembrance.org for more information on how you can watch this film as well as many more. For our salad tonight, our contributing writer and videographer in Los Angeles, Akira Olivia Kumamoto, sits down in a special interview with Nobuko Miyamoto, the subject of a film by Tadashi Nakamura about her life as a musician, dancer, and activist. Please enjoy.
This year, Nichi Bei will be featuring the PBS documentary Nobuko Miyamoto, A Song and Movement at the 2025 Films of Remembrance. The film follows the life and journey of artist and activist Nobuko Miyamoto. As a child, she was a prisoner with her family in American concentration camps, which informed her experience as an activist.
Internment was a traumatic act for most of Japanese Americans who were alive at that time. And that trauma has been passed down through generations, whether you know it or not. It has affected how people raise their children, their attitudes about many things, how they live and how they want you to live. And we have to face that so that we can heal those wounds that are intergenerational, and claim it also. If we don't claim it, if we don't see it and see it as a wound, as a scar, and as something that we need to heal collectively and individually, I think it's really important for us to do that right now. And a lot of work is being done in recognizing it as trauma, but also let this trauma connect us to others going through this right now. If we don't do that, what good is it?
She was a dancer, musician, and actress. She partook in mainstream films and theater, eventually writing and creating music for Asian American and other civil rights movements. Her song with Chris Iijima, called We Are the Children from the late 1960s, is considered an anthem of Asian American activism.
Very quickly, after we wrote our first song, Chris Iijima and myself realized the power of music in communicating ideas, as well as capturing a spirit. And I think capturing the spirit of joy, of unity, of ideas. We can do this together is an important thing these days. We have much to do, healing and restoring to make things right and to make things better for all of us. So I think that the arts and culture is a really important part of that. It's a way of communicating that is not aggressive, that makes people feel and experience each other. It also able to talk in complexities, not in layers. So things like films, things like songs, performance on the stage, and obon that many people can participate in. These are practices that and art forms that I think are going to be increasingly important in the days to come.
Miyamoto was an ally of the Black Panthers in New York during the 1970s. She eventually moved to Los Angeles and continued her cross-cultural activism. She became active in the Senshin Buddhist temple and learned about the Japanese dance of obon. She now helps host Fandang Obon with Great Leap, which brings together Japanese, Mexican, and African American music and dance traditions in Los Angeles.
It happens that my work with obon led me to meet others who have traditions of circle dancing and music, participatory music and dance. And I met Quetzal Flores, who is involved with Fandango, which is an art form from Veracruz, Mexico. And he's a musician, I'm a musician, we're looking at this. He invited me to a workshop of Fandango, and I said, that's interesting. They're making a circle around this platform. And the musicians circle the platform, and the dancers get on the platform, and they stomp out these rhythms. And I said, that's sort of like a obon, except we dance around the platform, and the musicians are usually in the middle. What would happen if we brought Fandango and obon together? And he said, yes. So it started out as a one-off. We wrote a song, and we went into the Mexican community and the Japanese, and we shared our different practices, and then we learned the new song, and we came together at the plaza of the Japanese American Cultural and Community Center. And once we did that, people loved it so much that, okay, let's do this again. I thought, okay. And then we did it. We brought in the African dancers and the Black community and Muslim community as well. And we have the opportunity of continually expand. But first we started out with communities that we actually lived with. Japanese people lived with the Black community, but lived in neighborhoods with a Latino community. And that was sort of the first step, was to look at the neighborhoods that we shared, the schools that we went to, the traditions that we, that shared, etc. So it's been a wonderful experience, and always it's an adventure every year.
Miyamoto's documentary will be featured at the 14th Annual Films of Remembrance at the end of February and the beginning of March in San Francisco, San Jose, Los Angeles, and Gardena, California.
A grateful thanks to Nobuko for being available for this segment, and especially Akira for the story. You can see this film and others at the 2025 Films of Remembrance. For more information on that, visit 2025 or 2025.filmsofremembrance.org and check out our entire film lineup. Next up, we speak with producer and director Kerwin Burke, actress Kealani Kitora, and actor Ryan Takemiya about feature-length film Kintsukuroi, which depicts the lives of two Japanese families and how their lives were changed and connected by the events of Pearl Harbor, Executive Order 9066, and the participation of their sons in World War II. Please enjoy, and we hope you find this segment inspiring.
I'm David Kiyoshi Tom. I played Ryan's father in the film. I'm Kerwin Burke, and I'm a filmmaker, born and raised in San Francisco. And my latest work was Kintsukuroi, which is going to be playing at the Films of Remembrance in Japantown. When I was growing up, again, your parents didn't talk about it, but you would learn these stories sort of through osmosis. So I've been sort of, I was a journalist for many years, and also writing, of course, in my spare time. And I've been taking sort of notes literally since I was a child about sort of the Japanese-American experience and how it affected people I knew personally, like neighbors, my mom. The basis for, the seed for these scenes are, a lot of them are based upon people I met, or people who actually lived. There's a scene where Shig, for example, is being interviewed by an FBI agent. And we were about to shoot this, and we were setting up the shoot, and I talked to John Funabiki, who's an old friend from my journalism days, and John's father was in the MIS. And John also had a transcript of his father's interview with the FBI. And so he lent me the copy of it, and as I'm reading it, there were a lot of really interesting questions. So I pulled a lot of that out of the actual interview and inserted it into the scene, and then I gave the actors the new sides. So there's a lot. So John's dad is actually in that scene a lot. Well, we intentionally used some of the Dorothea Lange images as a sort of a touchstone for scenes. Like the one we tried to really emulate was Satsuki Ina's mother in front of Gakuen. Some of the war scenes are actually composed to emulate some of the pictures that were taken of the 442nd soldiers. So yeah, we were directly trying to pay homage to those pictures and sort of subconsciously link our real history with the film. So a little like the Wizard of Oz, because we started out with just Ben and I and Sam doing sound. And as the shoots progressed and we kind of made it known we were shooting this project, we would get people on board. Just out of the blue, they would contact me. Paul Hara, Max, there's this guy named Greg who came on board, Brett Mifune. People just like, you know, I'd say, hey, if you want to come and work on this film, just, you know, show up on this day, and people would show up. And we went from the original 3 to probably about 8 on the crew. One of the hardest things to do with an indie film is to get extras, because you really can't pay them. And like, you know, it's a thankless job. It's not like you're in front of the camera a lot. Again, producers will tell you that adds to a certain production value that you don't get when you're shooting just in an empty restaurant or an empty church. When you watch Kintsukuroi, if you look at it very closely, you will, and if you know Kikon, you will see some of the scenes that we used in Kikon. So it was a little tricky. I mean, everybody aged, 3 years. We lost a lot of people in the production. Anna moved down to Los Angeles, had 2 children. So there were a couple changes within the cast of crew. Luckily, we had Kehlani, and she just did a wonderful performance. And there was this sort of naivety in the beginning that as a character, she evolved it sort of into now a stronger woman.
Hi, I'm Kehlani Kita-ura, and I play Wendy Ito. So it's interesting because I take acting classes, and one of the theories of my class is your character is yourself in imaginary circumstances, but this is me in in something that actually happened. So I think there was kind of a gravity to that, and also the fact that all of my grandparents had experienced going to camp, and so playing somebody who had also gone to camp, I think it really resonated with me. Kerwin wrote Wendy, I think, in a way that I really related to. I feel like if I was placed in this place and time, I probably would have reacted very similarly to Wendy. I hope that I would have tried to stick up for what I believed in.
Ryan, of course, has been Jimmy Ibarra for 6 years. I mean, he understands the character probably better than I do.
My name is Ryan Takemiya, and I played Jimmy Ibata in the film. I have some personal connections to the 442nd. My dad had an uncle who was in the 442nd. I never met him. He passed away before I was born. Growing up, I did spend a lot of time with the members of my family of that generation, the Nisei members of my family. He had been talking for a long time about wanting to turn this into a feature-length film. And we knew that the material itself was very meaningful and moving for people. So there was something there, not just artistically, but for the community as well. Well, it was very interesting because usually with an acting gig, you do your part in a few months and then you're done with it. To return to a part is always, it's pretty rare, but then to return to a part many years later is actually even more rare. So I had to, of course, rewatch Gikan and bring myself back to that place. But it was really a joy because I felt like there was more to explore with the character. You know, we tend to think of World War II as a very long time ago, ages ago, right? Ancient history. But there are folks who are still alive who experienced it. And we also tend to put those folks up on a pedestal. We tend to think of them as untouchable or as gods almost, or heroes who experienced this. But they're real people. They, we know a lot of these folks. A lot of these folks are in our families. We've met them, and they're just real regular people. So I wanted to just one of the main things is I just wanted to show how regular Jimmy was.
And so I guess the message for the film, part of the message of the film was that this story is our communal history. It's one story within our communal history. And I think that the people who watch it understand sort of the longer story arc. Their individual story will deviate from what they see on the screen, but they get sort of the general sense of it. So I think this film at this time it sends a message of, don't do this again. And although the film is uniquely about Japanese Americans, I think on a broader sense, it's a cautionary tale about anyone who's different, anyone who doesn't quite fit in, and how you can be targeted. These rights are guaranteed under our Constitution, yet they can be revoked, at a moment's notice.
Every morning, every evening, ain't we got fun?
Thanks to Kerwin, Kealani, Ryan, and Nichi Bei writer Tomo Hirai for this segment. If you want to see this film, there will be 2 special opportunities to see it in person at our 2025 Films of Remembrance in San Francisco and Los Angeles' Little Tokyo, as it is the showcase presentation of this year's event. You can find more information on the 2025 Films of Remembrance website. Just a reminder, you can read in-depth articles about these segments in our paper, including this week's special Films of Remembrance preview edition. To do so, please be sure to become a member of the Nichi Bei Foundation, where you will receive the Nichi Bei news at www.nichibei.org/subscribe. Next up, Rob Busher connects with Whitney Peterson and Diana Tsuchida, the creator, producer, and lead subject of the film Snapshots of Confinement. Both Whitney and Diana discuss how the audience will view the impact of incarceration camps to the incarserees' lives through photos taken inside the camps that chronicle their everyday lives in the camps.
Hi, my name is Whitney Peterson, and I am a producer and writer on the Snapshots of Confinement film. My background's in anthropology. I started my career working at Manzanar National Historic Site for about 4 years, working in interpretation and doing oral histories through their oral history program. And while I was there, had the opportunity to actually participate in oral histories with people who had experienced the incarceration and to speak with members of the public who, like me, had previously not known very much about this history. And then in graduate school, I had the opportunity to work at the Amachi site with my advisor and work with students and community members to help preserve the history. So a lot of that sparked the conception of this film and the work that we're working on today.
My name is Diana Tsuchida, and I'm the creator of an independent oral history project called Tasaku. Tasaku was really also, started from a passion to uncover my family's complicated history in camp, which really revolved around my grandfather's actions of being a Kibei Nisei and of being a resistor and being even further removed from the WRA camps and kind of put into other isolation centers because of his stance against the incarceration. I became involved with snapshots of confinement really through the power of social media and met Whitney that way, and this all sort of began during the pandemic.
I think this film was really motivated by wanting to amplify the voices of, people that I spoke with as part of those oral history projects, and making sure that people are able to hear directly from them about their experience, and through their own personal photographs, tell their story, and for people part of their families to be part of that conversation and how we pass on the legacy of that history.
In terms of the role that photography and photographs play in maintaining community history and continuity, it really is sometimes the only thing that we have remaining that is our primary resource of showing from our perspective, from our family's perspective, what took place inside the camps. The photos that were captured in camp by our families, eventually when cameras were more widely used or distributed or secretly and or otherwise, those were the moments that are the proof of what people went through inside camp.
Something that surprised me through having this opportunity to really engage with people's snapshot photography and these photo albums is not necessarily what was in the images themselves, but what was written on the images. And for some photos, you're able to take them out of their little squares and look at the back, and there's like messages written to different folks or names listed out, naming people. And I think it really shed light on how these photographs are part of the fabric of the community. I think something I've seen since then too is going to, for example, like the Manzanar reunion or pilgrimage events where people are bringing family photos and sharing them with others, that it continues to be part of the fabric of the community. And people might, see a relative in somebody else's photograph that they had never seen before, and how that really starts to bring people together and make new connections that hadn't been made before, and lays a foundation for people to try and learn more about their family experience, through connecting with others. And I just feel so incredibly grateful to the people who agreed to participate and share their stories. I think what they share is so vulnerable and insightful. And I am just so grateful for being able to hear their stories and connect with people throughout that process. And I guess my hope for the film moving forward is it just continues to spark those connections and conversations and dialogue as we move into the future.
What I love about this the festival, Films of Remembrance, and the films that are shown every year is that, movies and films have a way of cutting through noise unlike anything else, and it's a communal experience, especially at a festival, that can be so impactful. And I am really looking forward to seeing how the community audiences are going to watch snapshots and what questions and what comes up for people after watching it.
Many thanks to Whitney, Diana, and Rob for that segment. The film is part of the 2025 Films of Remembrance being shown in San Francisco on February 22nd, San Jose on February 23rd, Little Tokyo on March 8th, and Gardena on March 9th. For more information, visit 2025.filmsofremembrance.org. Now, since Major League spring training camps are set to report this month, here's a special snack report on an event that our writer and videographer Akira Olivia Kumamoto attended on the project to rebuild the baseball diamond at the Manzanar National Historic Site, which was inaugurated in October of 2024. Please enjoy.
On December 7th, 2024, the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles hosted an event called From JA to Shohei, Manzanar Baseball Project. The event was about the Manzanar Baseball Project's journey to rebuilding the baseball diamond at Manzanar National Historical Site. The program was directed by performance artist Dan Kwong. The months-long endeavor included a slew of volunteers, multiple setbacks, and culminated in players from the Japanese American Baseball Leagues of California playing a doubleheader to inaugurate the diamond on October 26, 2024. The presentation at JANM about the project highlighted a panel of speakers that included Kwong, Kariyo Nakagawa, Susan Kame, Bobby Umemoto, and Chris Komai. Nakagawa, who is the founder of the Nisei Baseball Research Project, spoke about the history of Japanese American baseball.
You have to reflect back on the Jim Crow laws at the times. Japanese Americans, Latinos, and blacks were banned from playing Major League Baseball, although we had great players. So when I look at players like Otani-san and Yamamoto and Nomo Murakami, I always think of our Issei and Nisei ball players that had the fight tools, they had the skills, they had the passion. It's only they never got an opportunity. So I look at today's legacy players, every Asian player, biracial Asian player, managers like Dave Roberts. To me, they're really standing on the shoulders of these Issei and Nisei that could have raised the bar at a major league level, except they just never got an opportunity.
Kame, a prominent scholar on Japanese American incarceration, talked about how baseball made prisoners of American concentration camps during World War II feel more American.
And I think one of the things that I love when I read about this in the camp newsletters, the camp newspapers, is that it was such a, especially for the baseball, it was not just a community for the players and the folks that were organizing it, and for the folks that were already baseball fans, but it was something for everyone in the camps, that everyone went to everything because there wasn't anything else to do. But it just became an important part of the life throughout the incarceration, and an important metaphor, especially for the Nisei, who were angry, who were frustrated, who were had no way to express how they felt about being considered disloyal, even though they were American and they knew nothing else except being American. And so for them, baseball was an important way to say, well, I only know how to be American.
Komai, the grandson of the original publisher of the Rafu Shimpo, shed light on what baseball was like for Japanese Americans post-World War II.
We needed something to do to make us whole again, right? And the sports program was part of that. The other thing I would add on top of what Carrie and Susan have said, and I'm sure what Dan and Bobby are going to talk about, baseball was different than the other sports. And I played basketball all my life. I love basketball. Basketball's a great game, but baseball is our game. And the reason why baseball is our game, as Carrie knows, is a lot of the Issei learned to play baseball in Japan, right? So there was a man named Horace Wilson who in 1871 was the first person to teach Japanese people how to play baseball. So by the time people started to come in the 1900s, they had all learned how to play baseball. Baseball was their game, so it's the only game that the Issei and the Nisei both were comfortable with. And because of that, that's why baseball is our game. So eventually, my uncle and the others, they do basketball, they do fast pitch softball, and then eventually they start up baseball. And baseball, now, it's been how many years since then? And the thing that's so thrilling to me now is that I've lived long enough to see Shohei Ohtani. And we won the damn World Series.
Umamoto, president of the Southern California Nisei Athletic Union Baseball Leagues, talked about Japanese American community baseball.
We've had a good long run in research for the 70th state baseball tournament. I realized that the Little Tokyo Giants had started around the same time. So we've been going on for 70 years as well. And I've been there since about 61. Pretty cool. Like I was mentioning, I don't remember how many championships. We did win a few. Sadly, if you play for me, that might not be an option. We haven't won a lot, but I have a lot of great memories. Mike Furutani, who's here, I told him, he's from up north, but I told him you're an exact Bobby player. Because if somebody else doesn't want you, they come play for me. Because my goal was not to win all the games. My goal was to just try my best. Do your best. That's all you can ask. If you do your best, then you've succeeded that day. Okay? You may not have won the game, but you've done what you were supposed to. You met your goal. And that's pretty much what I got of it.
Kwong, who hosted the event, showed video documentation of the creation of the refurbished Manzanar baseball diamond, as well as the subsequent historical reenactment of the game. All in all, the project and panel left the audience feeling uplifted, and the legacy of Japanese American baseball will forever be preserved.
Thanks to Akira for that story. We're glad to see baseball still being honored by Japanese Americans. When Films of Remembrance travels to the Gardena Japanese Cultural Institute on March 9th, you'll be able to view a special screening of Baseball Behind Barbed Wire, a film by Yuriko Gamo-Romer on the story of Japanese American incarceration told through the lens of baseball. The screening will be followed by a discussion with the filmmaker and Dan Kwong, a leader in the Manzanar Baseball Project. You can find more information on our website at 2025.filmsofremembrance.org. Next up, we share some noteworthy stories from the Community News Files. Director, just do it.
Next is our News Bites, highlighting events over the past month or so, including stories from the pages of the Nichi Bei News. Let's roll the News Bites, please.
So let's roll the News Bites. The News Bites rolling. Late on January 19th, murals in Nihonmachi Alley were defaced in Seattle's Chinatown International District. The murals by Aaron Shigaki and the late Amy Nikaitani, which depict people who were incarcerated during World War II and historical locations in the community, were cleaned within 24 hours. On November 23, 2024, ultra-marathon runner David Thull ran a 200-mile marathon fundraiser from the Buddhist Church of Fresno to the Buddhist Church of Sacramento. Thull raised more than $40,000 for 13-year-old leukemia patient Nathan Imura and Mama Bears Fighting Childhood Cancer, a nonprofit that supports Northern California families and their young cancer patients. Nathan received a stem cell transplant from his father, Aaron Imura, via blood transfusion on December 14th, and we're happy to report that Nathan is now on the road to recovery. Panelists discussed Fred T. Korematsu's impact on Japanese Americans, as well as current developments in President Donald J. Trump's administration during the Fred T. Korematsu Day of Civil Liberties and the Constitution program, held January 25th at the Wesley United Methodist Church in San Jose's Japantown. Panelists discussed the late civil rights icon's case, as well as Trump's Muslim travel ban in 2017, and other threats to people's civil liberties today, with Karen Korematsu stating, "When we lose our sense of democracy, our civil liberties in the Constitution, we all have to speak up." More than 50 young adults gathered at Koho Co-Creative Hub in San Francisco's Japantown, January 18th, for the Japanese American Youth Alliance Convention. The convention aims to connect young adults with community organizations and the ethnic enclave. They participated in icebreakers, toured the community, and held group discussions.
After 9/11, the same thing. And so we can't tolerate that kind of rhetoric, that negative rhetoric. This is, we all belong here. Americans are a land of immigrants. We all have something to contribute.
Well, everyone, thanks so much for joining us for our second episode of Season 4. We hope that you enjoyed what we, and of course all of our featured chefs, cooked up for the Café menu today, featuring our annual Films of Remembrance event. And so, at this point, we want to give a big thanks to the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation for their continued support of the Café. We're always appreciative of our collaboration with you in finding new ways to engage our Nikkei community. We would like to thank everybody for continuing to support our YouTube channel, and hope you enjoy our future content featuring our Japanese and Japanese American community. So please continue to support us by telling your friends, family, and loved ones to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this episode, and comment down below. To stay in the know of more happenings in the Japanese American community, please consider becoming a member of our Nichi Bei community to help support what we do here at www.nichibei.org/subscribe. A lot of things are happening in the community. Next up, we will present a calendar of upcoming events.
interrupt you. I heard something.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. The creator and producer of lead subject of the creator and producer calendar of upcoming events. But before that, before that, I have to get this right. Please consider becoming a member of our Nichi Bei. Yeah, I was thinking of family popped into my head, but then I was really quickly like, no, and then really quickly again I was like, yes.
Okay. Go with your heart, man. Go with your heart.
My heart doesn't have a brain though. Japanese and Japanese American, no. It was so good, but then it wasn't.
That's what I changed.
Hey everyone, and welcome to, well, here we go.